guys, how are you today? We are jumping on here really fast because we have received some questions about our channel, some questions about what we're doing, and we've had some followers who have reached out to us and had questions about things, so we wanted to just kind of address all of that in one video. And we've even had some people in real life, IRL, ask us questions, and so hopefully we can answer some of those as well.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what we're doing today. The first question, I think, is why aren't we live right now?
Yeah, it says right here, you used to do a lot more live feeds. Why are you not doing those as much? Well,
even a month ago, we did an Andy Warhol type video live feed of the bird feeder.
Yeah.
And we tried doing it tonight, and it turns out YouTube has curtailed live feeds from mobile devices. Right.
So just in the last month, YouTube has made a new rule that if you don't have 1,000 followers, then you can no longer go live using a mobile device. And because we don't have the software and whatever you need.
So you need a webcam, you need the software on your computer.
And since we don't have that, we just use our mobile devices for everything.
Right.
Except for when we make our informational videos and our cultural critique. Those are a little more stylized.
But we still use a phone.
No, well,
we record on our phones.
No, for the last four or five videos that we've done.
We only edit on a computer. We record on a phone.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we do. We use the application on the computer to make the movies. So, so that's the question. That's the answer to that question. The question is, why haven't you been doing live feeds anymore? You used to go live all the time. What happened? So it's nothing that we did. It's just that YouTube created this new policy that if you're going to use your phone for a live feed, then
you have to be important.
You have to have 1,000 subscribers.
Right.
So at this point, what we're doing is we're asking you to subscribe to our videos. Try to build that. I think we have 340 right now, so try to build that number up to 1,000 so that we can go live and so that we can say hi to our followers and
do more of these Q&A sessions.
Do more of these Q&A sessions live, which would be really great. So the next question is, when is your next project and what will it involve? So before we answer that and go into a little more detail about that, if you go back to our last few videos, you'll see that we've
changed format.
Right, the format is a little bit more professional. We're a little more on the creative side, and it's definitely unique to us and unique to our vision. So with that in mind, we do have 3 new projects that we are currently in. They're currently in the works. This is our cat Gretel. All the more reason for you to subscribe. You would get to see this beautiful cat. And who doesn't like a Maine Coon? We have 3 new projects that are in the hopper right now that we're working on, and the first one is really JP's baby. He's really into it.
We've been calling it the Green Video, but it's an indictment on what's really behind the Green New Deal and what's behind a lot of the new language and push behind the climate change issue and what would you put it? The activism that surrounds it right now. It's not what it seems, and so we've been learning a lot. A couple of years ago, I did 2 videos, one called Carrot and one called Stick, and I broached these very subjects then, and I was only guessing, and I was kind of right in my assessment, just from my knowledge of being involved as an environmentalist for the last 30-something years. So so this is my response to both those videos as well as what we've been learning lately about all this and what's been going on.
Right. So it's going to be a critique and analysis about who is truly funding the green movement
Mm-hmm.
and everything that's involved and all of the different players. I mean, we're not going to go into as much detail about it as some investigators have. These
Mm-hmm.
investigators are actually inspiring us to do a creative video about it.
I think what we'd like to do is touch on all the points and make it more of a kind of a digest of all of that content.
There's a lot of content out there.
There's a lot of content, and what we will do is kind of briefly go over it. It still will take a while, but then point you to those sources
exactly
from where we go. So
right. Yeah. So that's a question, and so this is actually a 3-part answer. So when is the new project coming out,
mm-hmm.
and what are the new projects going to be?
Mm-hmm.
So in answer to that question, they will be coming out in the next 3 months or so. Mm-hmm. The next 2 projects are more they're a little more simple than the Green New Deal project, or the critique of the Green New Deal, which is that we're working on. It's Pennsylvania Act 129. We're going to do a video on the Pennsylvania smart meter law. We live in Pennsylvania now, so we figured that this would be an appropriate subject matter, because it's something that we recently discovered. So
right, like we did with California laws and federal laws too. We're gonna touch on that. And the thing, I guess the reason we're bringing it up, or we're going to cover it, is because it's been around for a little while, but we believe that, like a lot of things that happen in California, they happen in the rest of the country. We believe in this case, because of the machinations and the players behind it, that it may be the thing that will drive
the rest of the country. Yeah. So it'll be a critique of how the legislation passed despite the outpouring of criticism against it. Mm-hmm. So we can really take a good in-depth analysis of PA Act 129, or the smart meter law here in Pennsylvania, mm-hmm. and how it represents the failure of representative democracy to really listen to the will of the people. So there's that aspect to it. Mm-hmm. Also, the concept of the type of language that was used when the act was written on the Public Utilities Commission website, as well as Duquesne Light's website, which is they use the term deployment, which deployment is usually reserved for military tactics when you are deploying weaponry or bombs or personnel against a country you're invading. So the idea that a utilities commission would actually use the term deployment on tax-paying United States American citizens was really alarming to me, so I want to talk about that. So that's just a hint of the second project that we're working on, and then the third project is a little bit more nuanced. It's not so specific as the first 2. It's going to be a critique of individualism and how liberals and their individualistic lifestyle choices and their privilege,
America in general,
yeah. how it strives to be sort of like living in this individualistic lifestyle, and how detrimental that has been for our economy, for our social structure, for our psychology, and all of that. So those are the 3 projects. So the green critique, the critique of the Smart Meter Act here in Pennsylvania, as well as the concept of individualism in America. So before we move on to the next question, I wanted to thank a local reporter here in Pittsburgh who did a really great piece about us in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. And
we'll
it
put
launched.
The link to that.
We'll put the link to the article in the description of this video. It launched yesterday and then again today, and we've received so much incredible feedback from our neighbors and our friends back in California. And it was such a nice depiction of our move across country, and it was really nice to be featured like that in the local paper, mm-hmm. which is awesome. Yeah. So we, it just felt really good. And we're really humbled and thankful for all of the support and outpouring of love from everyone. So we wanted to mention her. Her name is Joyce Gannon. Please follow her on the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. She is doing a series of articles which are talking about the revitalization that's happening in this town that we live in, which is about 10 minutes outside of Pittsburgh. It's a little neighborhood called McKees Rocks, and how it's revitalizing and coming up. So she did an article about us coming from San Francisco and what a journey it's been. So is there anything else you want to add to what we've discussed so far, or should we move on to the next question?
I think we can move on to the next question.
Okay, so how about you field this one?
Okay. Let's see. Oh, this one down here?
Yeah, read it
Okay,
out loud.
okay. You describe yourself as anarchist. Really? Really?
Ooh, really?
Ooh.
Yeah, so somebody reached out to us and said,
well, we do wear a lot of black around here.
yeah, we sure do.
But you know,
Especially this one.
That could be the fact that we're from San Francisco too.
Yeah, we're just urban dwellers, we wear black.
Yeah.
Yeah, so somebody asks, you describe yourself as anarchist? Really?
Yeah.
So, you know, we can talk a little bit about that, what that means.
So, you know, anarchism isn't necessarily about, you know, donning masks and smashing windows. In fact, it isn't really that at all. It's more about community building and barn building than it is about smashing windows.
Right.
That's what you'll see in protests, and it's what's known as the diversity of tactics. So in some cases you smash windows, but that's probably the last thing that you do in a protest. And you know, in a lot of these cases, I mean, they're really, some of these cases are just a few isolated incidents that the press love to, you know, magnify, or they're agents provocateurs who are getting the crowd riled up to do more, you know, things like that. So, you know, all the criticism of the violent protesters is really misplaced, and in a lot of cases,
not even true.
Not even real, not even true. So, I mean, the criticism is true, but the what they're criticizing is not. But anarchism has been described as more of a, you know, less of a philosophy and more of a way of life. And there's many tendencies within anarchism, everything from what we were mentioning, individualism, from more individualists all the way through anarcho-communists, and we tend to be more on that side of the anarcho-communist and syndicalist realm. So there's like everything in between. And the tenets of anarchism are, you know, things like creativity, solidarity with the people around the world, internationalism. I've got cat fur. What was the other one? Solidarity, direct action, mutual aid is a big one where, you know, and that goes with solidarity. It's like, and community building. So you lift up your community, but it's about horizontal organization. It's about self-organization and more spontaneous types of organization, rather than having a top-down kind of thing where you have a set of leaders that then you know, help you, you know, decide what you're doing, or decide what's being done for the community, rather than you deciding for yourself.
And take a look around. I mean, our leaders haven't really been all that great.
No, they haven't, and they've been letting people down.
Yeah, so we're getting taxed, and we're paying our leadership, and we're paying our representatives to actually represent us, and nothing's happening. Right. I mean, bridges are not getting fixed, roads are not getting paved, our healthcare system is in the toilet, and all the things that you as citizens already know. I think the nature of the anarchist is not to focus so much on what's not being done, you know, or what our representatives aren't doing, but how we can continue to turn away from representational democracy and work with each other.
And build up what we have. And in some cases, like, you know, we mentioned Colin Ward before, I mean, talking about working in parallel and working with, you know, outside of that system and just working under the radar and in your own capacity. You know, in the past, and there still are some anarchists who still believe in you know, a more direct revolution. But I think the revolution, we feel like we have to evolve as a society before we can, have
any
a revolution.
kind of revolution.
Right.
That's
but
true.
the revolution, I think, really needs to take place in the mind, but also in the community, and it has to be about people working together to bring things together. And again, very horizontal, and volunteer and working with each other rather than taking leadership. Well, again, Colin Ward talks about the spontaneity of in his what is it? Not Talking Anarchy. The
Anarchy in Action.
Anarchy in Action. He describes how leadership can bubble up from the ranks, and then people take charge for a short time, and then they go back, and it kind of revolves, and it's very spontaneous in that way.
Right.
And so it's an interesting phenomenon that takes place, and he talks about in his book, and I can't remember exactly how he described it because it's been a while since I've read that. But the other thing that I want to say is that there was a point that I wanted to make about that, but it's completely slipped my mind.
I think to simplify the answer to this question, you describe yourself as anarchists. Really, it's really. I mean, anarchists
Yeah,
are
really.
not. We're not about ready to throw Molotov cocktails out our window and blow up cars and things like that. That's not what anarchism is. Anarchism is simply turning away from the structures of power and the hierarchical, corrupted bureaucracy that is in this country, simply turning away from it, not even pushing against it, but doing this sort of passive move to just walk away from it. It, in my opinion, it cannot be toppled. It's much too powerful. There's way too much money behind it. And the only thing that's going to save us is us for each other.
Right.
Working together to make community projects a reality, working together to come up with new ideas,
and that's the other thing too, is people go, well, what's the solution? Well, you have to come up with those solutions by yourself. There is no one grand solution.
Right.
And what you'll find is that there will be smaller groups that will federate with other small groups, and that's how you build, an area, a region, right? And if you all work together as individual groups with each other, then you'll find that you'll have a lot more control over your life than the way it is now, where everything's just kind of crazy.
Right, where you're putting all of that energy that you would focus into your community. So if you have a little bit of extra money and you have a little bit of extra time, representational democracy says, come on over here to our party and go canvass for our candidate, and then take whatever little bit of money you have and donate to his campaign.
His or her,
to his or her campaign. And it's like, that leaves nothing left for your community. So take your energy, take whatever time you have and whatever little money you have, and put it back into your community. Fix a road, get a whole bunch of collectives together to maybe buy a small building and turn it into a community center or a kitchen or something. Like, that's more beneficial for you and the community as a whole than throwing all of your weight and all of your energy into campaigning and canvassing for someone who's only working for Wall Street, who's only working for Big Pharma, who's only working for the war industry.
Even if they aren't, like, we were paid to work, or I was paid to work for the Shawhead campaign last year, and because I wasn't working, I wasn't doing anything else. And he's running again, and he's running for Senate or Congress.
Congress against Nancy Pelosi.
And even if they aren't working for, or they aren't that type of politician, they're not going to be voted in. They're not going to be
because the corporate faction of whatever part of that democracy or whatever party that they represent, whether it's Republican or Democrat, the corporate faction of that will not let them move forward.
Right.
So that's just the way it goes. So that's a kind of a long question to a simple, or a long answer to a simple question, which is, are you really self-described anarchist?
One more thing. I mean, people probably are curious as to, like, you said you're an anarchist, but you bought a house? You own a house?
Right.
Okay, so there's a difference, and that was the thing that
that's another question that's actually come up is about the money, like,
okay, well, we'll
how
come back
did
to
you come
that.
up with the money?
We'll come back to that, but just to let you know that in the anarchist world, I guess, and communist too, I guess, there's private property and personal property, okay? And private property is property that you own that you use to make money with, okay? Personal property is like a home in which you dwell in which you improve, in which you use to do whatever you do, grow a garden or host your friends or just live your life.
Improve the value of the community.
And improve the value of the community, not necessarily the value of the house.
Right.
Because you're not owning it to just sell it and make a profit. You're owning it to live your life and be part of your community.
Right.
And other things like computers or even a car. I mean, you get to work or you do what you need to do in that vehicle. So. Or your bicycle.
Mm-hmm.
So private property is much different. It'd be like if you were owning a building and you're renting to people, or you're you're like an investment real estate person, and things of that nature. So I just wanted to address that because I'm sure those questions come up. So.
Yeah. So that sort of leads into the next question is, are you rich? Someone actually asked us that. Like,
really?
Are you rich? How did you buy a house with cash? No, we're not rich. My husband wouldn't be driving a school bus to bring in money if we had money.
Mm-hmm.
So that's definitely not, not going on over here. We're
Yeah.
not rich.
And it's not like I like children that much too either. I mean, the kids are great. They
love you.
And they're little beasties, but they're great. And they make little drawings of Julie and me.
I know.
It's very cute.
They're so artistic. It's really great.
And I love that age group is great for their art because it's uncorrupted. Right. Anyway.
So in answer to the question of are you rich, how could you afford to buy a house with cash? Well, we were living in San Francisco and he hadn't been working for a while and we were running out of money. Well, we were paying our rent with credit cards. And it was really, really challenging. So we took a little bit of money out of his retirement.
Yeah.
Okay, which we don't recommend.
No.
And we dispersed it. We said, okay, a portion of it's going to go to buy a house with cash because we don't want to get on a mortgage. And we saw what happened in 2008 with that. So we wanted to buy a house that we could afford to pay for with cash. And then the rest of it was used to pay a couple of months of rent, which
unfortunately we couldn't do that.
Unfortunately, we had to do that, which we shouldn't have.
No.
Because there was no point.
There was no point. We were just talking about that tonight. Yeah. How we probably should have just screwed that landlord and just,
San Francisco doesn't need our money.
Right.
And
just
we need our money.
Live there for 3 months while we're packing up to leave.
Right, and just not pay the rent because it takes a while to kick someone out, and it's not like we needed the credit because we were buying a house with cash, so it's not like it would have affected our credit in any way.
Yeah.
So
and then we used the money to move across the country.
So we used a portion of the money to move across country, and then we had to put in things like a water heater and a stove, and we had no floors. So that exhausted all of the money that we borrowed from his retirement. Right, and all of the money that we borrowed from his retirement was exhausted and used up for that. And so that's where we came up with the cash to buy the house.
We also reserved some of that money to pay the taxes and
there is
and
a
the
tax
penalties.
bill. There's a penalty that comes when you pull early retirement, and we just got the tax bill, and it's huge. There's hardly any money left over to pay it, but we're going to get on a payment plan and we're going to do it, and it's still cheaper than getting on a mortgage.
Because the interest is...
They give you like 3 to 5 years to pay off your IRS tax bill. So, we can pay it off in about that amount of time. So it would be the equivalent of getting a mortgage, but much lower percentage rate, only at 2%. So we made these kinds of conscious decisions. We kind of went into it knowing what we were doing. We thought about it for a while before we just did it.
Right.
We realized the consequences of doing that, especially with having to pay a huge tax bill for 2018, and then of course with everything that Trump did, which made it so much worse.
That tax bill really messed people up.
So we knew what we were getting into. So in answer to that question, are you wealthy? Do you have money? How could you afford to buy a house? That is such it's such a
reductive.
Well, it's such an interesting question because it goes into the concept of individualism that I want to bring up in this next project that we're going to be doing soon. So life could have been a lot easier for us, sure, and we wouldn't have a big tax bill to pay. We still would have had to borrow from his retirement in order to pay rent because there was no money coming in and we were exhausting our credit cards paying rent. We would have still had to borrow from the retirement in order to maintain just living in a rental space in San Francisco.
And to tell you the truth, that prospect sounded really horrible because you're just paying money out to rent, to the landlord, and you don't own anything. You
don't have any rights. You don't have any power. But it would have been easier, and it would have been better as individualists. In this individualistic lifestyle that is so pervasive in the United States, it would have been a lot easier for us to stay in this beautiful, comfortable city that we're so used to, instead of throwing ourselves into a foreign city, with
getting out of our comfort zone.
One of the things about living this sort of, being an anarchist is to get out of your comfort zone. And a lot of people, especially in this country, are unwilling to do that. And they're just, and we had many people push back against us and say, do not do this thing. Do not take money from the retirement. There's still a little bit of money in there left. So that when we're 100 years old and can no longer work, there will be a little bit of money left for us. But hopefully, if the economy doesn't crash again and take it all again like it did in 2008.
Right.
But
because I lost some money from that,
Yeah, so the point is, well, everybody did.
Yeah,
pensions went away.
Right.
So, but the point is that you had to get out of our comfort zone. So we own this house. We own it outright. We're on a payment plan with the IRS to pay back the fee, the penalty for withdrawing from the retirement early. And to us, it feels more stable than paying $2,000 a month in rent every month, even though that's really cheap by San Francisco standards,
it's still a lot
to
of
something
money.
that you don't own, especially when there's no income coming in.
And then you have food bills, and you have power,
so all of that,
water,
and especially when
stuff,
there's no income coming in, there's no money coming in to pay for that. So now we're here. He has a job. It's been working out really well.
Just to clue you in, I was working as a designer, and it was more of it was an issue of like cash flow, where I was working as like a contractor, where I was like hired by an agency to go in and work for another company. I wasn't getting, in my career anymore, I wasn't getting the kind of like full-time jobs that one would expect and hope for, because it gets you insurance and long-term benefits.
That doesn't happen anymore.
And it doesn't happen that much anymore, especially when you're at the
We're
age
a gig
that I'm
economy
at.
now.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I was getting, gigs basically, and it would be like 6 to 8 months on, 6 months off.
Right.
6 to 8 months on, 6 months off, and that just messed with our cash flow. In fact, at one point I think it was almost a year. It was close to a year of being off, out of work, and unemployment only lasts for so long, and it's a fraction of what I was making. In fact, I think I was probably making I don't know. Anyway, the point is,
really
it
low.
wasn't enough.
It's below the poverty line.
Right. It wasn't enough to live in San Francisco and maintain our awesome lifestyle. No, like putting food on the table and paying our bills.
Yeah, those awesome extra things that you need, like
$5
water.
Toast. No, kidding.
So
avocado toast.
Avocado toast. Yeah. So that's what everybody thinks. So in order to answer that question, that was again kind of a long-winded answer, but no, we're not rich at all. In fact, we're using an old, junky iPhone. We need new equipment.
Right.
For
So
our
that leads me into the next little bit here. We are we're going to. Okay. So I'm going to mount a campaign in the next few days to raise money for new equipment. So we're probably going to go for like $2,500 or something like that. We need a new computer. What we have is a 9-year-old laptop that is still doing fine. But
barely.
It's,
knock wood.
I know, exactly. But it's our only computer, and if it goes, then everything goes.
Then we're sunk.
Yeah.
We can't do our projects.
Right, exactly.
So.
And it's we use it for everything.
Everything.
So we need to get another computer.
Mine's already blown up.
Right.
Can't use mine.
For editing, for any number of things, graphics and the editing and the kinds of work that we're planning to do. Oh, and just disk space too, because it's
Right.
filling up.
Right.
All right. So, but in the meantime, before we do that campaign, if you can, please go to. Oh, it's backwards, isn't it?
Oh,
It's
right.
not supposed to be backward. Well, maybe it'll come out okay in the end. But basically, you just go to our website, Book
And
of
we'll
Hours.
put it in the description
Yeah, we'll
as
put
well.
it in there. bookofhours.com/support.
Right.
.html and
Even just $1 donation really
yeah,
helps.
you can do that.
Just anything.
And that'll go
you
into
know.
our PayPal.
And our creative endeavors
So-
will then, we'll then be able to move on because we do have these 3 projects in the hopper.
Mhm.
So we're hoping that, we can get started on those, and we
Mhm.
will. And it's just we don't even have a microphone.
Right.
We still have to use earbud microphones. So if we could just have a little bit of support from our comrades out there, that would be amazing.
Yeah. And we're not looking to get rich, but we are looking to looking to
No.
you for some help.
Yeah.
So that we can continue upping our quality.
Yeah, the quality
of the
of our
videos
work.
that we do,
Yeah.
and continue that, and bring a more artistic approach to what we're talking about, and also bringing issues and subjects to you that you may not have heard about yourself.
Right. So, and this isn't actually a question, it's a
Mhm.
comment that somebody made. They really appreciated the fact that we've sort of changed our delivery.
Mhm.
Instead of just coming forward and sort of complaining on live streams about
Correct.
things, we were actually creating creative content, where we actually spend a lot of time. I mean,
Mhm.
if you see a 10-minute video that we've created, it takes like 2 days to make that 10-minute video.
And like 8 hours
So-
of editing.
And 8 hours of editing,
You know,
and going
so-
back over.
So like
So-
maybe a day of planning and putting it
Yeah.
together, and then a day of shooting and editing.
Right. So we're content creators, we're creatives, and this is definitely more, it feels much more cohesive with our personalities
Mhm.
rather than just going live and talking about, the latest bullshit drama
Yeah,
in the political spectrum.
Right, exactly.
Which
That's
is
what
kind of what everybody
that's
does.
yeah, and that's
you
what
know?
Jimmy Dore is for, and that's
That's
what other
what
people
those
are for.
guys are for.
Yeah.
So we're here to make creative,
Yeah.
thought-provoking content.
And more of what's been described to us as video essays.
Right, exactly.
so-
Somebody mentioned that it was like a learning experience, and that they really, really enjoyed the new process that
Mhm.
we started. And you can go back and look at some of our videos on our YouTube channel, and just see what we're talking about.
Mhm.
So another question is for me personally, why isn't Julie on Facebook? So I get this a lot, especially around here where people
love Facebook.
people
here.
love Facebook here.
We don't so much.
And I'm more of a Twitter person, and eventually I might have to move off of that platform as well. I tend to be a research junkie. I tend to really look deeply into things, and the more I uncovered about the background with Facebook, the more
Mhm.
uncomfortable I felt using it, and that was a personal choice. Not only is, like we said before when we first started this video tonight, YouTube is on this campaign to quash any voices and to silence any voices that might critique the state or critique the way things are going. So anybody who doesn't have 1,000 subscribers can no longer go live. And so this is something that they picked up from Facebook. Facebook is kind of like spearheading the censorship and big time.
Mhm.
And so, but it's not only that. This idea that Mark Zuckerberg was a Harvard school dropout who got lucky is total bullshit. Total bullshit.
That's the stuff of movies. Oh
Yeah,
wait, there was one.
That's not a real
That's
story.
not it. Yeah.
The real story is that, the concept of Facebook and the media sharing, or the social media sharing concept, it existed probably back in the 90s or
Well,
the 80s
I-
in the government.
The CIA actually launched the project.
So it's a
and-
CIA's based
and
project.
they basically, and I forget where we heard this. It's documented. It's not
It's
a theory.
kind of common knowledge though
Yeah,
at this point.
But basically
Like,
that they took that and just basically reframed it and just kind of tweaked it a little bit to make it
Right.
more consumer
So
friendly.
it's nothing more than a giant peephole into your life. And so this goes into a very complicated subject matter called surveillance capitalism and behavioral futures markets, where Facebook is one of the tools that the state and these various security organizations like the CIA and all of the apparatus that's attached to it, like Facebook, like Twitter, like Instagram, and all of these various social media accounts are ways to make money off of you. And so it cultivates that little golden nugget of the thing inside of you that makes you unique, like that little piece of artwork that you put on Instagram, or that thing that you set on Facebook that makes you truly unique. And they basically just take it for themselves, create a market on it, make a ton of money off of it, and you don't get to see that profit, and you're basically enslaved to a social media algorithm that has the same kind of dopamine hits that you would get from snorting cocaine or being addicted to drugs. There were psychologists and scientists and all sorts of, media experts and social media experts and propaganda experts involved in the creation of this behemoth called Facebook, that were part of turning us all into these addictive, narcissistic type of personalities that the state and the media could use and manipulate our emotions. We become more divided than ever because of Facebook and social media. So that's why I got off of it. Now, I don't criticize anybody for staying on it.
Well,
I'm
your husband's
okay.
on it.
He's on it. He's still on it.
Yeah.
And it's okay. And I don't criticize people for using it. People are really innocent to these things. I happen to know a lot of things that are going on in this country that are deeply disturbing and very dark. And so I carry this knowledge around with me on the regular, and I try to use our platform as a way to illustrate these things, these happenings.
And as you said, you use Twitter, and you like Twitter a lot more. I really don't like Twitter.
I like Twitter a lot more.
But
unfortunately, it's just as compromised though as Facebook.
It is. And the thing is I don't really use Facebook much anymore either. I barely get on it.
Lately, you've been on it a little more because of the community projects that we're involved in.
We also have Book of Hours Facebook page, and we use that to like
shitpost.
Shitpost,
It's
but
really
also
just shitpost.
promote our videos.
Yeah, sometimes promote the videos on that page.
Or things that we post on our blog.
In answer to the question, why?
Because we do have a blog, and we need to drive traffic to that. So that's what Facebook is
Oh, right.
for.
So using Facebook
And
to
Twitter,
drive the traffic to our blog.
Yeah.
So why isn't Julie on Facebook? That's the answer, is that I know too much.
She knows too much.
I know too much about that stupid site. So, and then I guess the last question is, how are you adapting to McKee's Rocks? And do you just hate San Francisco now?
And to fill you in, McKees Rocks is a borough outside of Pittsburgh.
It's about 15 minutes outside.
We're just outside of the west end of Pittsburgh. So we're really close to the city line. We're still in the same county.
Yeah.
And as Julie said, we're by bus, we're 15 minutes from downtown.
Yeah, it's really not.
Which is about the same amount of time it took us from where we lived in San Francisco to get to downtown San Francisco.
Right, but it was still in San Francisco.
Yeah, right. But McKees Rocks is its own little borough, its own little town. It's very urban here. Okay, but you go ahead and answer that question.
Well, how are we adapting to McKees Rocks versus San Francisco? So this is do we miss a lot of things about San Francisco? I mean, when there's a lot of wealth, and San Francisco is a city of empire, and it's very imperialistic. When you have that kind of wealth that's just gushing into the city, where you have a millionaire every 2 blocks, or every other house, or every other apartment building, a lot of good stuff goes into the city. Beautiful parks, beautiful, gorgeous paved bike trails, ocean vistas, you can ride your bike along the ocean. It's kind of ridiculous how beautiful it is and how wonderful and lovely it is. Do we miss all that? Sure. We are aesthetic individuals. We like beautiful, nice things. But like the article mentioned, you can ride your bike to the ocean, but you can't pay the rent doing that. And so what's the point of all this beauty if you're suffering? Because not only were we not able to do what we've already accomplished in the few months that we've been here, we've done more critical content and more excellent work here in McKees Rocks than we ever did in San Francisco.
And there's a couple reasons for that. One is the pressure from trying to exist is gone, right? So it's less difficult to live here. The second thing is we believe that it's the community here. People are nicer. It's more relaxed. It feels like the 90s here.
Yeah, it's definitely the 90s.
That's annoying and nice at the same time. It's a little annoying, especially when you try to listen to the radio.
It's like what?
Yeah.
So yeah.
But so it's more relaxed and less uptight. There's because there are lots of things to do in the summertime, but in the wintertime I think that's when we made our a lot of our leaps of change.
Yeah.
So there's less to do in the wintertime, but that just makes you more creative, right?
Right.
And
exactly.
But the other thing about San Francisco that we noticed is that even though it's lovely and people are there and it's a big city, well, it's a small geographical city but a big population. It's very dense, like Manhattan is, but people don't get together.
Yeah.
It's like,
well, I mean, towards the last few years that we were there, we went to quite a few house parties.
Yeah, we did, but
we had a good social.
But it was always like
network.
Very, like it had to be like a big party to get people together. You couldn't just like get together with friends.
Not
just
usually.
that easily, especially spontaneously. It was very. It's like you either had to have a standing date, and you just happened to run across some people that were having that standing date that would get together at the local cafe for a beer, or I don't know. But it was rare. It was rare because it's, believe it or not, hard to get around that town, and I don't know. People just there's other things to do. Right, and so people do other things, and they get out of town, and they travel, and they do all these other things, and so it always felt hard to be there. And this is something that I experienced for the full 33 years that I lived there.
Yeah, it's definitely. I think when the question is, how are you adapting to McKees Rocks, and do you just hate San Francisco?
Yeah.
So
we
don't hate San Francisco.
No.
We are disappointed, and we are very worried about what's going down in San Francisco.
And what's coming up.
And what's coming as a result of San Francisco. Surveillance capitalism, which is basically enslaving the entire globe onto a behavioral futures market, which again, this is terminology that you may not understand. It comes out of San Francisco. So that means that to create that kind of these kind of algorithms and these kind of programs which mine the individual in the same way the old miners would mine the earth and pull the gold out of the earth.
Right.
So these people are miners. They're creating websites, and they're creating apps, and they're creating programs that are mining you, and that's all coming out of San Francisco. And so to be the kind of person that makes $1 million or $1 billion or a couple of $100 billion off of this kind of market, you have to be like the Lex Luthor type. I mean, you have to be like pure evil.
Right.
And so I cannot put it into specific examples, or I do have a specific example of a personal situation that happened to me where I was the victim of such evil. But it's everywhere, and it's pervasive. And if you're sensitive, and if you're an empath, and if you are somebody who is concerned about your community and concerned about the world around you, and you're around all these people that are just making all of this money to hurt society in the long run, it's a very difficult city to be in, because you have to either be a sociopath, a psychopath, not give a shit about the world around you, or you have to leave. And I think that's kind of where we were. So that I don't hate it, but I hate what it's become.
Yeah.
I hate the kind of people that it caters to. It caters to some very evil people, and so that's our thing about San Francisco, and of course that's not happening in Pittsburgh. You know, Pittsburgh, the industry in Pittsburgh. So the industry in San Francisco is, of course, the tech industry, Silicon Valley. The industry in Pittsburgh is the medical industry. It's UPMC,
which has its own issues.
Which has its own issues and its own problems, and but whatever.
We're learning more about
it, but it's okay. You know, it's not the tech industry yet.
It used to be the steel industry, and that's all gone away. And
so, and then as far as how are we adapting to McKees Rocks, we're adapting. I mean, and McKees Rocks, you have to use that as an all-inclusive Pittsburgh, term and location. So how are we adapting to Pittsburgh? Well, it's, the people here have an accent, and it's
weird.
A little difficult to understand at times, and I keep having to ask people to repeat themselves 3 times or say what all the time, and they either think they must think I'm deaf, which I am a little, but it's
not only an accent, but there's also certain words that they'll use in place of others.
It's like a completely different language, so
in some ways,
I'm sure they look at us as Californians and think that we over enunciate like Northern Californians do, but so, and then people are like, oh, you must hate the weather. I didn't really, the cold weather never really bothered me.
I rode my bicycle to work every single day except one, and the only reason that I didn't is because the wind was like 30 miles per hour. And
his company kind of insisted that he not ride his bike to work that day. So that was nice of them to let him use a vehicle. And so there is that sense of community. There is that sense of people looking out for one another and taking care of each other here. And, the kids are different here too. The kids are, they're not as spoiled and soft and entitled as the children are in San Francisco, I've noticed. There were some really sweet kids in San Francisco that were our neighbors. But the kids here, they're a little rougher around the edges.
They have a hard edge. Everybody has a hard edge here.
Yeah, it's a hard edge here that is not in San Francisco.
Right.
And that's because it is an example of a community and an area of the country that has been completely gutted of its identity, and so it's trying to rebuild itself and recreate itself.
I think it also stems from the history of working class folks that live here, you know, and this is a very working class town,
right?
And not to denigrate them for
that
at all. That's where we're kind
of the backbone of America,
exactly,
working class,
and
exactly,
and so we actually feel more comfortable here in a lot of ways. Because of that,
and it's strange because I've never waitressed or done anything like that, but I feel a definite solidarity with the working class. I definitely feel like, and I think what I'm sensing here right now is something incredibly unique, and positive and good, and you're sensing it as well. Is just in the few months that we've been here, there are people that have moved into McKees Rocks, artisans, creatives, people who make this one girl of them who makes the glass plate jewelry, and and they're just moving in and they're buying up these these spaces, and they're continuing their projects, and they're really lifting the community up. There's not one Starbucks to be found.
Right.
There's no Target close by.
Yeah.
It's all just super localized
so,
stuff.
And so to borrow a phrase from the the tech sector, which is bullshit, but it's like, to make the world a better place. I feel like that's what's going on here in the real sense.
But in a real
word.
way, not in a bullshit. Oh, I have to use this as my tagline when I go on my interview.
Or when I'm trying to raise funds for my
my app,
right, which
is going to end up surveilling you.
Right, so. Exactly. So by the way, to make the world a better place, you can go here and support us with the little cash.
Yeah, so that would be really amazingly helpful, and I think that's it. I think we covered all the questions, and I think we addressed everything. And I think what really took us by surprise was the fact that it's really happening. That YouTube is now not allowing those with less than 1,000 subscribers to go live. So please, please, please share us and subscribe, and ask your friends to subscribe to us so that we can go live and talk to you, and you can log in and chat with us, which would be amazing to do until we can get that new computer, because right now we're just using we're using our little iPhones, you know, to do this.
Yeah, and I think we'll continue using iPhones to record, but because I like them, they're easy to use, as opposed to a webcam. But at the same time, though, you know, and it's easier, it's more direct than using a camera and then software and then the computer. But we do really appreciate, we do love using the computer to do the editing of our essays. You know, and I've been taking shots of things around town and recording sound, and so we're going to start incorporating a lot of that into our new stuff.
Exactly.
So, you know, crickets are at night and birds in the morning, and the train. The train. Because I work near a train track, and one of our recent videos used trains going by, and that was. I saw the train coming, and I held my iPhone up and recorded it, and we incorporated it into our video, and it made a lot of sense because it was about travel and movement.
Right. It was the video we did on the Real ID, so please check that one out as well. Yeah. So we really appreciate you checking in with us, and we really appreciate the questions and the comments, and especially the amazing article that Joyce Gannon of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette wrote about us. It was very nice, and we're very humbled, and please follow her as well so you can hear all about what's going on in Pittsburgh. And if you are thinking about leaving your city, maybe your city has thrown you under the bus, maybe you can no longer afford to live there, maybe it's just not working out for you.
Or you lost your apartment in an expensive city. You
lost your apartment or whatever. Reach out to us here. Leave a comment, reach out to us, because there's things here, there's things happening, and you know, it's affordable. So.
Yeah, very.
Okay.
So, all right. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks. Bye-bye.